Good morning, friends. Welcome back to my YouTube channel Medical Classes by Dr. Srinidhi Kumar Acharya. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also please give your valuable comments. You can also visit the playlist. In the playlist, I have provided almost all the topics in a very systematic order. This is quite convenient to study really. And I hope you make use of it. Anyway, my dear friends, we have been discussing about rickets. In the rickets, in the last class, we are discussing about vitamin D and how the vitamin D is formed. We know that the two important precursors of vitamin D, ergosterol and dehydrocholesterol. Dehydrocholesterol is the animal source, and it is later get deposited underneath the skin, and upon which when the sunlight falls, the changes will start to form the storage form of the vitamin D. Similarly, ergosterol is the dietary source, especially from the plant source, poorly absorbed, so that also leads to the formation of vitamin D. But these ergosterol and ergosterol, so cholesterol, so they will get changed into storage form of the vitamin D, which is happening in the liver. From the liver, now this storage form of the vitamin D has to be get converted into active form of the vitamin D, so that will take place in the kidney. Now let us see, once the storage form of the vitamin D is formed, how the active form of the vitamin D, the real one, D1, which act as a hormone, so that will be formed. So that we'll discuss today. Similarly, in the kidney, vitamin D, the active form will be formed, and it stimulates the expression of TRPB5, and it leads to the expression of the calcium channels there and helps in calcium absorption. Now this is how the vitamin D active form will work. We know that the active form of the vitamin D, that's D1, that will go into help in calcium absorption. Now what actually vitamin D will do, that is, it will go into stimulate the expression of TRPB5, and this leads to the expression of the calcium channels there in the PCT and all, and then it helps in the calcium absorption. Now what is the role of activated vitamin D in the bone? 1-alpha hydroxylase enzyme is very important for the formation of the active form of the vitamin D, we have already discussed. Now, what is the role of activated this vitamin D, that is one which is produced from the kidney, in the bone calcium maintenance? The activated vitamin D and the parathyroid hormone will enhance the expression of RANKL, that is RANKL, in the osteoclast of the bone. Okay, so this RANKL is the name of the receptor. Okay, so that is the full name of the RANKL is a receptor captivated nuclear kappa B ligand. So vitamin D will go into enhance the expression of this particular receptor. Okay, so this will bind to the receptors which are present in the pre-osteoclast into the mature osteoclast. Now the mature osteoclast will secrete the hydrochloric acid and activates the enzymes like proteases, and all these will liberate the calcium and the phosphorus from the bone to the plasma. So this is how from the bone the plasma will come into the blood. Okay. From the osteoid, the calcium is there. Now whenever there is a blood level falls, so dynamic equilibrium has to be followed by the action of the PTH and parathyroid hormone, and as well as the vitamin D. What happens is this particular receptor captivated nuclear kappa B ligand will be expressed, and that will bind to the osteoclast, and then pre-osteoclast into the mature osteoclast, and this mature osteoclast now secretes the hydrochloric acid and as well as activates the enzymes like proteases, etc., and these proteases, etc., will go into liberate the calcium from the bone and calcium and phosphorus from the bone into the plasma, so that the blood level of the calcium will be maintained. This is one way. So activated vitamin D, one more function of the activated vitamin D is it also has the role of bone mineralization. So this will induce the synthesis of the osteoclast. This will go into induce the synthesis of the osteoclast, which is a protein and which helps in the calcium deposition in the bone. This is how vitamin D is responsible for maintenance of the calcium in the bone, that is mineralization. because it induces the synthesis of osteoclast, which is a protein, and this will going to help in the calcium deposition in the bone. Now 7-dehydrocholesterol, when get a light between 290 to 315 mm on exposure to the sunlight of wavelength 290 to 315 mm, so it will be converted into D3 first form. First there is a precursor converted into D3, D3 to D2, D2 to D1. D1 is also called as active form in the kidney. Now this 7-dehydrocholesterol, when gets the sunlight between 290 to 315 mm on exposure, so now this 7-dehydrocholesterol is converted into the next form, that is called the D3. Then exposed to the sunlight or any other artificial sources of the light with the ultraviolet ranges, it is absorbed into the blood. Now not only sunlight is required, suppose any of the other artificial lights with the required wavelength, ultraviolet range, if you are providing, that also convert this vitamin precursors into, that is 7-dehydrocholesterol into D3, and then it is released into the blood. Similarly, when we are talking about vitamin D from the plant or the animal sources, they also get absorbed along with the other fat substances, along with the bile salt or from the intestine, and then they're packed inside the chylomicrons. Okay, see, vitamin D is basically what you say, fat soluble vitamins. Okay, so vitamin D. So similarly, when we are talking about vitamin D from the plant or any other animal source, for example in the milk, for example in the egg, etc., it is also get absorbed along with the other fat substances, along with the bile salt from the intestine, and then it is also packed inside the chylomicrons. Chylomicron, this is how the fat globules or fat materials are get absorbed, one of the method. So chylomicrons are type of lipoproteins, and the function is to transport the lipid particles from the intestine to the liver. I think you know that chylomicron method. Okay, so they transport the lipid particle from the intestine into the liver through the lymphatics. Now vitamin D will comes to the blood and then bind with the protein called as vitamin D binding protein. Then it goes to the liver. Okay, so this is how the precursor form of the vitamin D is get converted into the storage form of the vitamin D and get deposited in the liver. Okay, now this will go to the liver, and in the liver the enzyme called as 25-dehydroxylase, which convert the vitamin D into 25-hydroxycholecalciferol, or also called as vitamin D3. Okay, so then this will go to the kidney, and in the kidney it will be acted upon by another very important enzyme called as 1-alpha hydroxylase enzyme, and get converted into 125-hydroxy vitamin D, and this is what we are mostly talking about, frequently talking active form of the vitamin D. For the formation of the active form from the storage form, one enzyme is important, that is 1-alpha hydroxylase, which is present in the kidney. Therefore, any kidney problems, especially related to the PCT and all, proximal convoluted tubule, definitely leads to the ricket also, and that ricket is called as renal rickets. That we will discuss. If the problem is there in the liver, then also it leads to the rickets, because storage form is not formed. From the storage form we will get the active form. Now this hormone will be induced by PTH, hypocalcemia and hypophosphatemia in the blood. Which one? This particular important hormone, 1-alpha hydroxylase enzyme, so that will be released whenever there is a increase in the PTH action is more, hypocalcemia is there, because that itself is a stimulation. Hypocalcemia is there, we have to produce more, we have to maintain the calcium. To maintain the calcium you need vitamin D. So vitamin D will be produced from the 1-alpha hydroxylase enzyme only, active form. So all this will induce the hormone. So this enzyme will also inhibited by the negative feedback mechanism, that is increased calcium and phosphorus in the blood will inhibit the PTH secretion, which in turn inhibits the secretion of this vitamin D active form. Already we have discussed this part. And this is the most activated form and helps in the absorption of the calcium from the intestine. The vitamin D receptors are present in most of the cells of our body. Vitamin D receptors are present in the most of the cells of our body. They are also present in the cells of the intestine, particularly in the cells of the duodenum. Most of the calcium absorption will take place from that place, because almost all the body cells, they contain the receptors for vitamin D. Okay, especially the intestinal cells, especially in the duodenum, they contain more amount. Now this active form will bind with the nuclear receptors which are present in the cell. These receptors are also associated with another receptors which is called as RXR. Okay, RXR. Now ultimately a heterodimer complex is formed, and this complex will be later bonded with the calcium and all. So element responsible for absorption of the vitamin D, which is present in the regulatory sequences of the target gene. So this will going to result in transcription of TRP6 in the intestinal cells, and that will result in the formation of critical calcium transport channel, which will going to help to calcium absorption from the intestine. So this I am giving in detail how the calcium absorption takes place from the intestine, and the previous line suggests the different processes. Okay, now we will discuss about the role of vitamin D in various conditions. Vitamin D has got its role in calcemic benefits of the vitamin D, immunity role, infectious prevention role, neural effects, skin and cancer prevention. Many things are, sir, that we will discuss in the later classes. Thank you very much.